All right, welcome back, students. Today we are going to add another scene to our game here, and this one's going to actually be something like an RPG. We're going to keep it very simple, but we're going to do sort of a grid-based RPG movement so you can see some of those elements in action. So the things that I've added to my project here are a grid for me to walk around on, and then a text box image for me to be able to have text show up on the screen and have it look all nice. So if you want to pause and go get those things, I would recommend it. You can use whatever sort of style that you would like, but that's what I went with here. So let's add a new scene to our game here. New scene. And we'll go to scene view here. And we want to grab our grid and sort of expand that to be where we would like it. And I don't know if we want to have this take up the whole screen. Probably not, because we want some sort of text to maybe appear at the top of the screen. So we'll do something like this, I suppose. Okay, I went with a 10 by 10 grid here. If you want something different, that's fine. Just pay attention to how that sort of affects what is going on in your code a little bit later. You're going to need to make some changes because we're going to keep track of our position using a 2D array. So what we have here is something to that effect. How's that look on the screen? Let's change the color of the camera to something, maybe some gray or something. I don't really like this blue for what we have here. Yeah, that probably suits it well enough. Okay, so let's change the background color on the camera. And this is my grid. So now we want to get our player object into here. So let's just grab the first clip there. We'll just keep it away from the animation here. Gotta go to scene view for this. Here, we want to make it nice and small so he'll fit on one box of this thing. And he's appearing behind the grid right now. So if you recall, we need to change the sorting layer on the sprite renderer. So we can make this one back. And these sorting layers, even though we added them in a different scene, they're in this project, so we can still reuse the same ones, which is really nice. So use background here, and use player here. And then it will appear on top right where we want it. So we'll start him in sort of the upper right there. Actually, let's start him in the lower left. That's probably a better way to go. Now, if you want a grid that's a little fancier, that's fine. So what we want to pay attention to is how much space there is from one spot to another. Like, so let's take a look at our x coordinate here. Let's round it for simplicity. Let's say negative 3.75 would be, it's not quite right, is it? Where do we want to go here? Maybe I want him to look like he's right in the middle as well as I can. So negative 3.7 straight up. That's good enough. Okay, so if I move him over this way, here, that's about negative 2.9. All right, so 3.7 to 2.9, that is about 0.8 is the difference here. So if I add another 0.8, then I would get negative 2.1. That puts them in, it's a little off, isn't it? Okay, so a better way to do this probably, since doing it manually, I could find a certain amount that's going to work, but probably a better way to do this is to resize my grid so it lines up with this grid that we have here in Unity. All right, so let's go back to our sort of resize tool here, and let's see if I can line this up with those squares. I can make it a little larger. It's going to involve some resizing, but that's okay. And are we getting warmer here? Is it too small? Okay, it doesn't leave me a lot of space on top of the screen, and this picture is certainly not perfectly square. In retrospect, I should have found a better grid, but that's okay too. All right. So because the boxes I have aren't square, it's not working out great. And that's all right. This is a fun one, huh? Picture's not necessarily what I want it to be. Okay, so they're not quite squares, so I guess we're going to have to go with the original plan. So undo, undo, undo. I'm leaving this in because this is just part of the process. You know, you have to find something that works for you. So let's just do it this way. If you've got something that's a square and you can line it up better with those grids, then each grid represents one unit. They're one unit across, so that would work out really well. So instead what we want to do, I said it was about 0.8, so let's see if I can do that. That was about 0.8. It's not ideal. Okay, so middle of this is about -2. Middle of this is about -1.2. That's -0.35. No, 0.8 is probably not too bad. We might need to add a little bit to that, but okay, so 0.8 in the x direction, and then in the y direction, we're looking at what here is -4.6 to -3.95. So that's about 0.65, right? Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so 0.8 and 0.65 in the x and y. That'll become important in a minute. Let's mentally log that. Okay, so let's get that much working first. Let's put on our player object, so we can call this player. We're going to create a new script. So add component, new script. And we'll call it grid move. We already have that player controller script for our platformer that's in this project, so we can't call it player controller. Grid move is probably more appropriate here. So let's just say that the position of this thing moves the appropriate amount whenever we hit the left, right, up, down, and see if that goes. So here we'll say if player presses a move key, move 1 space in that direction. And what I ruled was x move is about 0.8, and then a y move is about 0.65. We're probably going to need to adjust those, but it's a good starting point to see how it looks. That way we can get some movement going on. So if input.getKey down, key code dot, and we'll go D for right first. Then we'll say transform.position plus equal new vector 3. I wonder if it'd probably be better to use a variable here. So we'll say float move x equals 0.8f, move y equals 0.65f. That way I won't have to change this 4 times if I want to change it. So it'll be move x 0, and then we can kind of copy all of this for the other directions. Copy, paste, 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 paste. This will be left, which is A, and we'll just subtract. And we'll say this is going to be up, which is W. We'll go up. We'll say S, which is down. And then we're going to change our arguments here. This one's up, so x direction is going to be 0, and then we're going to go move y. And then this one we're going to subtract, but same deal there. Okay, simple movement code that should more or less keep me on the grid. Let's take a look. Save that, check it out. Yeah, I think I need to increase my move x just a bit. And then for y, again, increase it just a bit. So let's adjust that, see where we're at. I'll pause this so I can get values I'm happy with so you don't have to see the whole process. Save some time. Okay, I am back here. That process was way more painful than it should have been, and your numbers aren't going to match mine anyway. But the important thing here is to know how far it is to move from space to space. I got close enough, but I definitely recommend using a grid that is more square-based, and then you can just line it up with these lines here. Okay, so we've got sort of something like grid-based movement here when we hit the buttons, but we're still able to go off the grid, which is a bit of a problem. So let's keep track of where our player actually is in our code here. So let's make a couple of variables for row and column. Int row, and we're starting at 0. Call equals 0. This is to keep track of player position. We did something like this in our text adventure game, as you might recall. Player position. And then we can do a sort of 2D array of strings here that'll keep track of messages at the different locations. So it'll be 2D string array messages equals a new 2D string array that is a 10 by 10. That represents sort of our grid. Like, where's that error coming from? Keep track of messages stored in locations. Okay, so on that, we can say we're going to add to row and column, and they're only allowed to move if the row and column values are appropriate. We're starting at 0, 0. If you want to start somewhere different, make sure you change your starting values here. But what we're going to say is we're not going to let them move off the grid either. So if they're trying to go right, then that means row can't be 9, because the last position is 9. Okay. We'll say here, row can't be 0. And same thing for col. And col is less than 9. And col is greater than 0. All right. So that enables us to make sure that they don't go off the grid, and we just want to make sure to add these things the appropriate times or subtract. So row plus plus. Did I get those backwards? I got those backwards, didn't I? I want to be consistent here, so sorry. Column changes when you move from left to right. Row changes when you move up and down. Oops-a-daisy. But that definition, row is the X position and column is the Y position, so yikes. I guess I prefer an X and a Y, don't I? Yeah, I think our life is going to be easier if we go X and Y rather than row and column for variable names. Sorry, I am not with it today, but that's okay. X, X, Y, Y. It just fits more with sort of our knowledge of 2D space. If you go row and column, the X and the Y sort of get changed, and that creates a problem for you. Okay, so X plus plus, X minus minus. All right, I think our lives will be easier if we do it this way, even though the lesson is more convoluted. And for that, I apologize. Fix this. All right, let's save that. We're going to power through. All right, we shouldn't be allowed to move to the left off the grid. We shouldn't be allowed to move off the top. Ooh, interesting. 1, 2, 3. I can't move to the top row. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, is this 11 tall? Duh, this grid. Can't believe it. Okay, top row is going to be inaccessible. I'm not even messing around. It's really a 10 by 10. Ignore my goofy grid. Oh, boy. All right. So I correctly am staying within that sort of 10 by 10 square. The top row, this guy can't go to the top row. He's not allowed to, and he can deal with that. All right, so that's grid-based movement in a nutshell. It's allowing us to basically just directly change the position here. If you want to make it a little fancier and not have it just jump from spot to spot and go instead to the position slowly, like it just moves toward that, then what you want is a vector2.moveTowards or transform.moveTowards. I think it's in that library. That's something that we can look at another time if necessary. It was also in the Pac-Man tutorial, if you will recall. But for now, that's something we can do. We're keeping track of our X and Y, and then we can use this these strings here to, I think they all default to empty for now, but we can say, all right, if I'm at a certain position, then print a message. Let's just do this with a print statement now, and then next time we can actually have it pop up on the screen, and we can do a little more interactivity. So let's say in start is where we want to set that. So we'll say messages at, and we'll just go to location 4 on the X and 6 on the Y, and we'll call that the secret location. You found the secret location kind of thing. And we'll just do it as a print statement. So we'll say print message if at secret location, or I guess print the current locations message. Print current locations message. So we should do that just once, though. We don't want to print it a bunch of times. So maybe we should just do it in here. Well, where's the best place to do this? I want my code to be efficient. I guess down here is probably fine. I think maybe if we keep track of whether we moved. Well, whatever, we can deal with that later. We'll just say if they're at the current location, then we'll say if I don't even need an if. Sorry, we could just print messages at X and Y. So X and Y are the player's current location, and then this will do it to a debug statement. So it'll print to the console. I think it will print nothing. Hopefully it won't give us okay, it says null, so it's actually printing to null, which is interesting. But once we go to spot 46, which is here. Oh, no, wait. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's up. Oh, right there. You found the secret location. It actually doesn't eliminate that because anything else, there's nothing to print. But if we go here, it's actually printing that repeatedly. As we can see in the console here, it's just printing that message over and over for the secret location. And then we could add another one just to make sure that we're getting two separate messages, because, I mean, the correct way to do this is to fill in every single area of the string array here with a message, but that's a whole lot of code that I don't really feel like writing. So let's add a second location. We'll do messages at 50. So this will be in the bottom row somewhere. Equals. There's nothing interesting here. Okay. And then, so what we'll do is we'll say if message, if there is one. So we'll say if messages at X, Y. So in other words, if it exists, then we will print it. Otherwise, clear the print. So otherwise print nothing. Okay. So that gets us somewhere to work with moving forward. Oh no, errors. Oh, I guess it didn't like that. Okay, if it's not equal to null, how about that? Null is a keyword, meaning if there's nothing there. So we're saying if there's something there, print it, otherwise print nothing. Let's see how it likes that this time. We all right? Okay, we're all right. So nothing being printed. There's nothing interesting here. And then back to nothing, and then we go to our secret location, which is here, and then back to nothing. Okay, now we will, in the next lesson, go ahead and add text to the screen and print that all nice and neat up top. But I think for now that's probably good. We've got our movement here. We've got our grid in place. It's not perfect, but that's something that you can adjust as you're sort of developing this a little further. And then we set it up so that we could put a message at each location, potentially. Certainly at some of the locations. And then we've got this else branch where it just does nothing, essentially, or prints nothing, in order to, if there's nothing at that spot there. Okay? And we could make this super complicated and add a whole bunch of stuff, and that's something that I'll leave to you. For next time, please go ahead and add some more messages to this thing, and then if you can get them into a UI element on the screen, we're going to go through that next time, but if you can get a head start on that based on what you've seen so far, I think that would probably be a good way to continue this thing. So this will be, sort of a part one, and then we will continue developing this thing and maybe do some more interactive stuff with it next time. And that is going to be it for now. Have a good week.